Hi, welcome to Happy Hour with Ruth
and Roxy.
We wanted to start this episode just to acknowledge our American cousins and what you're going through, and we know it's really hard, and it's affecting us up here too. I mean, it isn't just about the terrorists, which we know was not you. That it was the fascist Republican admin 47. Yeah, we're not saying his name anymore, because they don't deserve to have their names, but they are a fascist regime, and we know you're dealing with a coup from within, right? And we just want you to know we care about you, and we are here, and we are not walking away from anything, and that honestly, the majority of Canadians back you, and care about you, and are fighting with you, right? And we didn't think we could start the podcast without telling you that as much as we possibly can, we've got your back.
We'll try and stay upbeat and somewhat non-political in the main podcast, but yeah, we couldn't not say something.
No, and it's coming into everything right now. You can't. It's one of those where we've talked about it. As we're taping this, it's Super Bowl weekend, and I'm finding it a really serious sort of disconnect in everything I'm feeling is that you're fighting fascism in your country. And I'm seeing ads for Super Bowl parties and people talking about where they're going and what they're doing. And it just feels so disconnected, and you can't stop your lives. You have to find joy or else you will not last. But it is a really, really hard time. And the I can't even think of the word.
Juxtaposition?
That's the word. That's got to be weighing on you too.
Yeah.
But we are here, but we are going to talk about, some things that will bring you a bit of joy. Get your mind off it for a bit, because we all have to get our minds off it for a bit, because that refreshes you to go back into the fight.
So just know we're on your side. We're thinking about you.
Yeah.
And now on to lighter stuff.
Yeah. And we're back. You need to scooch in more. Or I need to scooch in more or something. You're not getting the whole flow of
We don't
her
always
hair.
get the exact, because last time we had that picture framed perfectly between our heads. I don't know. Maybe I just put
but I also moved the little heart. It used to be in the middle. So now it's throwing everything off.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So it's your fault.
It's my fault. It's always the PR person's fault. Just let me tell you.
Welcome to Happy Hour with Ruth and Roxy.
Yes. So I'm Ruth.
She's Ruth.
That's Roxy. And she's the queen of happy hour today.
But she's the queen of looking awesome. So I come in here and she is wearing, and I'll put a picture up here if I haven't already.
Good. I was going to try to raise my leg, but that would be painful.
That's going to hurt somebody. She's wearing cruise clothing because she leaves on a cruise. She'll be on a cruise by the time you see this.
Yes.
But she's wearing the most awesome boots right now. She's like, I need to try out my whole outfit. And I'm like, well, dang, girl. Thanks for making the rest of us look bad.
They're Taylor Swift sparkle boots.
They're awesome.
Which, at my age, is a bit of a risk, but I don't care.
No.
So
you get to not care.
Yeah, So we might have had too many bubbles when we did the Pink Beverly interview, and I might have tripped down her stairs. There were not enough bubbles. But I might have tripped down her stairs and haven't been able to put my feet in shoes for a week or so, and I haven't been able to work out. So I'm just happy that I can get these boots on, and I'm sad I can't lift my leg, because if I was working out I would be able to, but right now it kind of feels like it would be an Olympic feat to get my leg to go up like
she
this.
Sprained her ankle. Like she's like, I tripped a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I can see the swelling, I can see the bruise, I can see that you can't walk on it. I think that's a sprained ankle. Let's just call it what it is. It's just a little hurt.
It was just a little owie.
Just a little
that blew up about this big.
Yeah.
But I'm okay now, and I can shove my feet in these boots that Roxy will be so kind to put a picture. And I have to make sure they don't hurt too much, because I won't wear them a lot, but I will wear them.
But you're wearing them.
I'm wearing them.
You gotta have them on for some photo ops.
Yeah. So that's actually, let's talk about what we're drinking.
Oh yes,
because this is a new one.
So we've tried something new. We talked about Okanagan Wine Club before, which we are both members. It's a great wine club. You don't have to live in BC in order to participate. It's a non what's the word I'm looking for? There's no mandatory purchase involved. You sign up, and every week you get.
But first you have to do that. Yeah, it's every 2 weeks. But for the first time you sign up, you have to get, in order to be a part of it, you have to buy the welcome
I don't think you have to buy it.
Oh, okay.
But I think you can subscribe to it.
Right.
But you can't buy any of them until you've bought the welcome
done
package.
that. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
So
So
there
yeah.
is
So
one.
if you want to be in the club, but you get
But
this.
you can still get all of the recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
So you get, I think it's every 2 weeks. I said every
Every
week,
2
but I
weeks,
think
unless it's every
weeks.
once in a while we get a few extras in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Probably during like when they're getting rid of last year's, or you know what I mean.
Maybe.
But
so they focus on this company does a really good job of looking at mostly, but not entirely, Okanagan wineries, and they go and they interview the
they do great
winemakers. They
videos.
talk about terroir. They talk about the grapes that they use. They talk about the history of the winery, and then you get a curated pack that you
Yes.
can buy. Usually, there's a choice of one
Yeah.
or two, and they're usually fairly accessible. Sometimes they do a little higher end wines.
Yeah. But they're pretty good for BC wines, really. Like for the
they are. And so this week, or the last time I ordered, they focused on a winery in Cowichan Bay, which is where Ruth and Paul.
which is sort of the area we're looking. You know, we're kind of looking Nanaimo, Qualicum Beach, Parksville,
Going down the south of
Chemainus,
the
kind of
inside
like that sort of
Vancouver
stuff.
Island.
And which was this one?
So this winery is called Unsworth Vineyards.
Oh, and it's Cowichan,
And
right?
It is Cowichan,
Yeah.
Cowichan Valley.
Yeah, so Chemainus
Yeah,
is
it's
kind of
called-
near the Cowichan Valley, and Cowichan Valley is sort of near
read this.
Duncan too, I think.
Mill Bay.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
So their address here says Mill
Yeah,
Bay.
which is really cool.
So this one is an interesting blend. We finished this one, but I saved enough.
Just for the record, she finished it. Well, she almost finished it last night, and we did a taste over here today.
Yes,
It's like, I don't want them to think
No. I opened this one 4 days ago, and my husband and I have been sipping on that one, but I saved just enough so Ruth could have a taste.
Which
And
is so nice, huh?
This one's called Allegro, and it's a blend of, God, my eyes, Savagnin and Petit Milo. Never heard of either
No.
of those grapes, but I really like it. It's
very
got
good.
It's got a brightness to it that makes me think a little bit of the Tantalus Riesling that we like.
Right.
It's not quite as sweet as the
Yeah.
Tantalus Riesling.
Yeah, and to me, it's got sort of that green of Sauvignon Blanc a bit. Like it's got it's a nice brightness, which is
Yeah.
for a white, that's what I like, which is why I don't really like Chardonnay, because Chardonnay feels darker to me, right?
Is not bright at all. Yeah. And then the one that we're drinking right now is a Pinot Gris from the same winery, and it's also lovely.
It is really nice.
Yeah, I quite like it. So
And you know, given you know what went on with the tariffs and stuff, which may come back in 30 days with the U.S., they may open between our provinces, right? They might open the wine stuff more because they're looking at how to boost the inside Canada economy.
Yeah.
So what might happen is because of 47's threats about the tariffs, is they might open, because right now it's hard sometimes between I don't think Alberta lets you get it, or
I
maybe
think
it's
you're
Ontario
right.
or something.
Yeah.
But they might open it
Yeah.
up, which would be great for these wineries.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I mean, to be able to get this quality of wine, and it's in your backyard. It's kind of cool,
it's in
right?
your backyard, and it's accessible. These are
Yeah.
both, I think they were $30, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit less. Yeah, and they're lovely, and it's local, right?
Yeah.
Like
it is real, and especially from the island, because I didn't even realize the island had wineries.
I didn't either.
So it sort of teaches you stuff about your own country, right? About your own province.
Exactly. So and it's, like we've done 2 wine tours for sure in the Okanagan.
Yeah.
It's a reason to go, and
Yeah.
just like we had so much fun, right?
Yeah.
Because
you get to go to different ones all the time,
Yeah,
right? Like you get to go to your
exactly.
faves.
Yeah.
Right. We would always go to Crown and Thieves.
Absolutely.
Right. And we would
Yeah.
always go to Stoneboat, which is our bubbles.
Yeah.
Right. But there's other ones when you learn about them, and now there's a reason.
Yeah,
When we get to
exactly.
I mean, we're just talking. Our house is it's been up for 4 weeks now, but in January, and our realtor
in an ice storm.
and our realtor was away for 10 days, right? So it's like you kind of can't even count all of that in there. But we're laughing because I was like, it's never going to sell, and it's like
You've
it's
had 2
February
showings.
7th. Yeah.
2 showings in 4 weeks. It hasn't started yet.
No, and that's just it, and that's what
you
I
have
have to
to think
remember.
about it that way.
Yeah, but it's a funny thing when and it seems and not having had kids, I don't know this, but it's kind of like childbirth. I think, like when you're doing this, you're kind of like, oh my God, this is hard and it's awful and it's this, just like childbirth. It's like this hurts and I'm never doing it again. Now, remember the last one with Pink Beverly? She coughs when she's uncomfortable,
or not.
But I think you kind of forget how difficult it can be, because every day feels like a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, it will be fun when we get over there.
Yeah.
To see what else is over there.
Exactly. There will be other stuff. And on that note, because we talked about, I don't know why, something sparked in my brain. Doesn't matter. This is where I'm going to announce that I'm a granny for the 4th time now. Because our daughter had her second child. Not ours. A long haul for everybody. Ended up with drama at the end, of course. Emergency C-section, but everyone is doing fine. She's a week old now, and her name is Juniper Evelyn. Baby Junie.
Junie is so cute. Yay! So cheers to baby Junie.
Cheers to baby Junie. I was privileged again to be there for most of the labor. By the time the end came, and they're like, "No, we need to knock her down and get this baby out surgically." I took that opportunity to come home and let our dogs out. These guys basically looked after our dogs for the 3 days that sort of took.
They're nice dogs.
Well, they were, by the end of it, Neo was feral. He's like, I'm going to eat everything I can find. He was losing his mind. But,
but he's used to getting a lot of exercise with you guys,
and
right?
A lot of attention,
we just took them out to, we took them out on regular walks and stuff. But, Neo's like, you guys take him out a lot. He gets a lot of attention. He gets to run around the backyard.
He's a teenage boy. He's a teenage boy right now. So, he's got the brain of a teenage boy and we keep feeling his head and his shoulders to see if he's putting on muscle yet. Nope. Skinny as a rake under all that hair. He's just scrawny. But anyway, so it was a long stretch, but our little one is here, and we're very happy about that. And her big brother, Abel, is delighted.
He's smitten with her,
He's smitten.
But also that kid has a head of hair, man.
Holy cow, does she have hair?
She's got as much hair as you do.
So my mom sent me a picture of me as a baby, and that was my hair as a baby.
That's funny, hey?
Yeah, I came out everywhere.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so we'll see. It'll probably, I'm sure hers will lighten up because Abel's basically blonde now.
Yeah, he's definitely a very light brown.
Yeah. And he had hair. He had a fair bit of hair too, and it was darker. But so I don't know what she'll end up being. But yeah. So it's pretty cool. So that's little
very cool.
piece of our life. So now you know what? I have no excuse not to make a dental appointment. I'm like, I can't make an appointment to get that crown fixed. I don't know. The baby's coming. I got to be free, I'm like, shit. I got to get my crown
Now you got to go
fixed.
do the things.
Well, I have a cleaning coming up soon, so I'll just wait and let them see it.
And go through the process.
Yeah, go through the process.
Yeah. Also, she's going to have to go get her hair sorted out soon because it looks really good. And as soon as both of us, our hair looks great. And then it's like then within a week, it's like, I got to do something. Now I'm having a problem because she has such good hair and now I have such thin hair. I keep looking at myself, which is really vain.
Your hair looks great. Like it's at a good stage. Wait,
it's at a good stage.
Are you getting it cut before? Because you leave next week.
No, I'm not getting it cut before I leave.
Because it's perfect.
Yes, it's good. But it compared to her like big,
that I did it like 2 hours ago.
Like Lorelai Gilmore hair.
This is like A stage hair. In 3 hours, it's B stage hair. By the time I take the dogs out for a walk, it's like, did you even wash it? Like, put a toque on, go out in the wind. Yeah. It's over.
Well, Paul's hair as he's getting up, and I'll have to see if I can get a picture of him. But he gets up in the morning, and he's got long, curly hair.
He's got a lot of hair.
And he has a lot of
super
hair.
curly.
It is really curly. But sometimes he gets up, and he looks like the guy from Back to the Future.
Oh,
like,
yes,
it's like,
yes.
He walks out, and it's like, who are you?
He uses a lot of product.
He uses product,
because he has to.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like...
So do you know the guy, he was voted sexiest man alive, I'm pretty sure 1 year. He was on Grey's Anatomy. He's there's McDreamy and McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy. Yep. And he played McDreamy, and I can't remember his character name. But you know who I'm talking about. I just remember reading an article that was interview. But he said, I finally learned how to use a hair product, and then everything took off for me because he's got curls too.
Yeah, like big wavy.
And when you don't manage, I don't know, like it takes me a serious instrument to put this much curl in my hair, so I don't have really curls.
But I'll give a shout out to Briley because I'm always asking her to do things, and she's like, "Do you want to spend an hour with your hair in the morning?"
No. That's it. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So
that's that.
I liked it a lot better, honestly, when my hair was long and I could just put it in a ponytail.
Yeah.
But then I look like a woman who only wears ponytails.
But that's exactly right. Like I've had times when I've had longer hair, and especially way pre-COVID, but then during COVID because you couldn't go anywhere. And then somebody sees you with your hair down and they're like, I didn't even realize that was you.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it's a very...
Yep.
It's a very...
So
what do we got, Rox?
What do we got? Oh, I was talking to you about So I have been rewatching a few shows. Well, in this case, watching it for the first time because I never finished watching This Is Us.
Right.
So I got onto that because my husband's been doing stuff, and we normally watch TV together. We have series we follow together. It's kind of our thing. But this one, this one is too dramatic for him. It's too much. Oh, the drama, the angst, the tears. He's like, I just want a car chase and to shoot him up. But so you know what he's doing?
What?
Like he goes upstairs and he plays a game of golf, virtual golf, and then he comes down and he's like,
What happened?
What happened? Oh, is she wait, when did she get pregnant? I'm like, pause. No. Pause. Yes, that's his sister. Pause. It's a long story. Do you want me to go into it now? Or do you want to,
yeah.
Drives me crazy. But I was watching an episode last week that was focusing on Randall, who is the triplet who
Right.
is he's a black man, and he was adopted as an infant. Who we're learning in the story, he actually wasn't born the same day; he was born the day before.
Right.
But they go into he's in therapy. And
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to act like Ray.
That's okay.
Did he grow up knowing, well, I guess he knew he was adopted, but
He always knew he was
think,
black, Ruth. Are you going to ask that?
No, I'm going to say, like, did he grow up thinking, like, did he know the circumstances of
He
his
didn't
birth,
know
right?
the circumstance. Nobody knew the
Oh, okay.
circumstance because he was dropped off at a fire station.
Oh, okay.
As an infant and then taken to the hospital. And and they do actually say in there, because one of the characters is looking to adopt a baby as a grown-up. So 40
Right,
years later, she's
right.
like, Mom, 40 years ago, they let people adopt babies like you adopted Randall. They don't do that anymore. And 40 years ago, they did not, first of all.
Right.
Because they had just had triplets and one of them died, and that's why they were
Right.
like, God wanted us to have 3 babies, and here's a
Right.
baby that needs a home. and
Right.
we should take him home. That's how they got Randall. But anyway, so he's dealing with identity issues as an adult, and throughout his life and childhood, they show him dealing really heavily with a lot of feelings of anxiety and responsibility.
Right.
And as he's processing some of this in therapy, he goes into the idea of what it was like for him, because this particular episode is coming up fairly close to the time that we're in. It's addressing George Floyd and
Right.
COVID and some of these things. And so the death of George Floyd affected him that was very
Yeah.
hard for him, obviously. And he's starting to talk about it with his sister, and he realizes, or he tells her, he's like, I have always felt this way.
Yeah.
Like throughout my childhood, I felt this way. I had no one in the family to talk to. You guys could see,
Yeah.
that's terrible, but you didn't feel
Yeah.
how terrible that
Yeah.
was. And I am growing up in a white family, in a white community, going to a white school. He said, I didn't even know how alone I was.
Right.
And that fed into this whole feeling
Right.
of anxiety and how he always had to be on top of everything and look after
Yeah.
everybody and various things that make sense. But they really did a good job of showing that even though his family loved him and they wanted to understand, and they tried, like they did Black History,
Yeah.
month and whatever.
But
like,
you can't.
they
It's not your
did
lived
what they
experience.
could,
Right, but it's not
they
your-
couldn't
yeah.
do enough.
Yeah.
They just couldn't do enough.
Yeah.
And so he's processing that as an adult, and
Yeah.
they just handled that really well. And it just gave me just that little glimmer of, oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Or you can't. My husband and I were talking later about, the patriarchy, because
Right.
I sent him a little clip about from a former evangelical pastor that I follow, and I'll put a link to him, who does a lot of Instagram reels.
Yeah.
And he's talking about various things that are very applicable right now about the evangelical church and how it's not really why he left, essentially. And so he's talking about how the patriarchy harms men and women.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
so I sent that to Ray because, he often, he hears me like down with the patriarchy and say stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, you hate men. I get it. I'm like, no.
No.
That is not what this is about. The patriarchy is a system.
Yeah.
And it is a system that demands very tightly defined roles for men and women. And it damages men in so many ways.
Yeah.
This is where toxic masculinity comes
But
from.
and that's what I was just going to say, and it's if you grow up in that and thinking that way, because there's a lot of really, really good men out there that are talking about, why do you need toxic masculinity? And they've pulled themselves out of it. But if somebody's just been raised in that, it's like you're saying to somebody who speaks Russian, here you now need to speak Filipino. Like their brains are arranged.
It is not how they think.
No,
it's absolutely not.
And their brain chemistry has worked around to do it. Like it's a little bit like when you have an old record and it gets the grooves in it. That's the neuroscience of that kind of stuff. It's not, even if they want to, they have to retrain their brain. Yeah. Right?
Well, and this is to go back to This Is Us. This is where I think the arts in general plays such a huge role, because it often takes a lot of exposure to something before you recognize what it is that the message might be. And it often, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, it takes a story and it takes an emotional connection to understand something. So to watch, Randall, his character, explain what it feels like to be that alone was huge. I'd love to see, and they don't really address toxic masculinity or the patriarchy or anything that way exactly, but they do show toughness on the boy that they don't necessarily give the girl. And anyway, it was a great episode. We're getting into a lot of stuff in that show that I like.
No, but it's funny, because I've had this conversation with my sister who is a screenwriter, right? Like she calls it something else because she'd rather not write the script. She'd rather just come up with the idea. But anyway, but she does. But we were talking about it because one of the things as American, and using American because I'm talking about Hollywood, right? As it came along, John Wayne was bad for society.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? That's the, you got to be tough. You're the one in charge. All of this. And in fact, what's the one with Kevin Costner? The one that was just
Dances
done.
With Yellowstone.
Yellowstone is another one that led that forward, right?
It's true.
Because and that's just it. And we always have this conversation of, because some movies follow society, right? Like some movies are like, oh, this is important to people now. And especially, we were talking about when the werewolf books came out and all that stuff. But on the other side, some genres influence society to become more of that, right? And I think it starts with us and other movies and they're talking about things.
Oh, it ends with us?
It ends with us, sorry.
It ends with us.
Yeah, they are going and the one you were just talking about is
This Is Us.
This Is Us.
It
It's
ends
also
with
confusing.
us and This Is Us.
But they're talking about these things that are helping to heal society because they're taking them out of the darkness, right?
Yeah.
And they're bringing up these conversations like what you just said. How would we possibly, as white women, ever think about that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, at least for me as an author, it is really important for me to tell stories that might tell someone. I've been a longtime supporter of the SPCA, and their slogan is something about the voice of the voiceless or something, right? And that's how I feel about my writing. I'm like, I want to tell the stories that haven't been told. I want to tell the stories about people who have experienced a thing that maybe not other people have, and it's a thing that they've had to overcome. And I wrap it in a happy ending, usually a romantic story, but there's always a bit of something, and to me, that's what I'm put on the earth to do. Exactly.
It's human conflict, and it's human conflict in the context of what's going on today.
Yes.
Right? Because again, and I like easy romance novels.
Yep.
Like you're sitting on a beach, I'm sure I'll read something on the cruise ship. But what I really like are the things that come up, and it's like, it's not about some guy coming in to save some billionaire, now used to be millionaires in those books, coming in and saving the woman.
Loser millionaires.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? But it's one of those where it's like, but this is where, the woman is her own strength.
Yes.
And you have these hard conversations, like about things like abortion and things about, about toxic masculinity and things about not knowing your identity because your entire culture, right? Even if you weren't raised in a black culture sort of family, somewhere inside your DNA, it's crying out to be connected.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that. I grew up in Saskatchewan, where there's not a big black population there at all. There's a lot of Indigenous people, though. And in the time that I grew up, there was a lot of people some people who were adopting Indigenous babies, and that was a thing, right? Let's assimilate them. Let's get them into good homes where they can be raised. And
talk about how now from this perspective, how judgmental that is, right? And how wrong.
So wrong.
Yeah.
So wrong. And I had a friend who they had, I don't know, it was a cousin or something, like uncles and aunts who had done that, I think. And so their cousin, who was Indigenous, she ended up leaving the family and just went elsewhere. And I don't remember a lot of details of anything from my childhood or even yesterday, really. But I remember the sense of confusion that the family had. They're like, we gave her this great life. Like, why does she not want it? And, at that time, I don't know. Like, that's weird. I don't know anything about that. Now I think, because identity is a huge issue.
Yep.
So I know it's not new. I'm kind of late to the game, finishing up This Is Us where I am, but I'm really loving it. I'm really impressed with what they've done.
Yeah, and it really got great reviews. I mean, it goes deep and it's authentic, I think,
it's really authentic. And to me, it just is funny every time I watch another episode, because I did not write my Malone series to be like This Is Us.
But it kind of is.
I'm like, oh, I got triplets. Oh, I got identity issues. Oh, anyway.
Yeah,
it's weird.
But it's also like, I forget who said this to me one time, but it was like, because you'd come in with a story idea and they're like, oh, you should meet so-and-so because, they just had this. And it was like, it's a part of this human consciousness thing, right?
Yeah, the zeitgeist, is that what they call it?
Right,
yeah.
It's like, so there could be, we could be sitting here talking about something and there is somebody way off in Australia, two people sitting having, and where it's like, oh, a light bulb just goes off for both of us. And not that, I don't think there are any new ideas, but how you see it is new for you.
Yeah,
right?
And how it lands.
Yeah.
So once that's over, once I'm done with that, I'll have to come up with something. But the next one, I mean, you mentioned It Ends With Us. Is that a movie or a series? That's a movie.
I just know the controversy that's out there about the main characters and stuff, but I think it's a movie, right?
I think it is a movie too. That one's on my list, but the one that I started watching is called The Power, and it's based on a book by Natalie Alderman, I think, or Natalie Alderman or Naomi Alderman. I'll check. But it is, I may have mentioned it on previous podcasts. It's where a global mutation happens, where girls.
She likes dark stuff, man.
I do. It's a dystopian novel in which girls around puberty start to develop the ability to have electricity in their hands, and they have the ability to channel that. They learn to channel it. So it becomes a flip of gender stereotypes.
It's like a superhero story, kind of.
Kind of, yeah, because suddenly most girls have this power and they can awaken it in older women.
Right. Oh, interesting.
So once they learn that they don't have to be afraid of boys and men anymore because they can hurt them worse than men can hurt them.
Right.
The entire world changes.
Talk about a power flip.
It is really fascinating because as you get into it, I mean, they're talking about things like men become subservient. They become the secretaries and the admin assistants, and they talk about genital mutilation, to curb. They call it curbing the behavior of boys. And I'm like, when I read it, I was like, that's horrible. And I'm like, why don't I feel that way? I do feel that way, but it already happens. It's still happening.
It's still
to women.
happening. Oh, for sure. Right. And they might not have the electricity in their hands, but the power dynamic is still upside down, right?
The power dynamic is upside down. Yeah. So anyway, that one is good. The book is really good. I finished reading it for the second time last week, I think. And yeah, it's great. It ends really well. And I forgot most of what it was, so it was a good
no reread. It is. It's a good return to it, right?
So the second book that I'm rereading right now, because I am on this dystopian, the world is ending, and how can we make it better? I wonder
why.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah.
It's called Parable of the Sower, which has been I've been hearing about this one lately. I could have sworn it was you that started to read. Maybe it was Megan.
It was me.
My younger daughter and I tend to have some similarities in our reading taste. Parable of the Sower is another dystopian one where a teenage girl in I mean, the world is very similar to what it is right now, like the prescience of these authors who wrote these things, because this and The Handmaid's Tale, like unbelievable that they could predict these things. She ends up sort of saving the world and creating a new religion along with it.
Wow, that's interesting.
And yeah, it is very interesting how this comes about. So anyway, that's what I'm reading right now.
That's pretty good. So so mine are, what I'm watching anyway is a little bit lighter. Besides The Big Bang Theory, to
we watch Modern Family during supper time.
That's the thing, right? But I was thinking about it when you were talking about like The Big Bang Theory, and although they never said it, but one of the main characters, his mannerisms, it seemed to me to be that he is someone with autism.
Did you say which one you're talking about?
Sheldon, right?
Yes, Sheldon.
Right. So they never say that. No, never.
Really?
And it's because he is a genius, and if you've ever really met like somebody who's mental level genius, they tend to be a little quirky because their brain works different, right? Like it's like they see things differently. But that was the first time I think it was like, wow, this is so great, right? For people who are maybe not within that, in that sort of average corridor, which I promise you I'm not. I mean, I've never been diagnosed on the spectrum, but I certainly have some characteristics. Well,
that's why they call it a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Like we all lie on it somewhere.
Yeah. But the other one is Will Trent, and it's really good, and it's set in Atlanta, and I think he and another police officer on the Atlanta Bureau of Investigation, they grew up in foster homes and abusive foster homes, some of them. And so they have this bond, but you also dig into the emotional challenges that somebody who has gone through the system and who never really felt safe anywhere. And like there's these layers, and they have really interesting plot lines that you don't always see coming. But then there's Elspeth, and she came from...
Is she a character?
I'm on to the next one.
Next show?
Trent, called Elspeth. And she was
Beth, with a B?
Yeah, ELS Beth. And she was in The Good Fight and maybe The Good Wife.
Oh.
Right? And she was this quirky lawyer woman, right? And she's always got all these bags, and she wears really bright colors, and she's a bit like a Columbo type, but now she has her own show. And it's fascinating too, because again, takes a character that might be considered a little out of mainstream, but she's the lead character, right? It's really, and then there's one called High Potential. Is another one, and she starts off as a cleaner, and so she's this person with a very high IQ, but she's a bit ADHD because of her high IQ, and she has insomnia, and she's got 2 kids, and there's a whole backstory for her, but she ends up and she's looking at a police evidence board, and she realizes they've missed something, so she moves it, and then they haul her in because she's tampered with evidence, right? But then what they realize is she actually solved the case. So they hire her as a consultant, but she's really funny, and she wears, kind of a little trashy clothes, like the Forever 21 stuff, and meanwhile she's in her 40s, kind of thing, right? Like short skirts, and I forget her name, the actor. She is absolutely beautiful, but she's also hysterical. But she becomes this lead character, and again, she is not what you would consider the mainstream would consider, that average, class sort of thing. Like this is the person in the middle, and it's really interesting because she is fascinating. And when you start to look at all these characters that are coming through, one of the reasons I don't necessarily like the superhero movies is because they're the typical, handsome American guy, and he, there's a little bit of privilege. Like it's kind of like, show me somebody had to work to get there.
Yeah.
Right? And all of these characters are a little bit like that. They're all a little, left of center.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't mean that politically. I just mean they're a bit quirky.
Yeah.
I expect they're left of center because they're a bit quirky and they understand that diversity is actually a great thing.
Yeah.
But as much as they're just really entertaining, they have this subtext, right? You don't have to be the perfect privileged, white cis. So Will Trent is Latino in this, right?
Oh yeah,
right. Elspeth is a woman, right? Yeah. I can't remember the woman's name in High Potential. A woman, you know what I mean? It's these characters that wouldn't necessarily have been the lead character, and yet they are.
Well, and it's exposing us to whether. And I know some people really object to this, it's exposing and normalizing certain identities and people in roles that maybe they would have traditionally had a hard time getting.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of like Will and Grace.
Yep.
I actually never watched it, but I know that. I mean, it's about two gay characters, right? And basically,
and a straight woman who loves one of the gays.
Oh, okay, okay. But they normalized
they for sure
gay
did.
people
Yep.
to the mainstream.
Paul's home.
Daddy's home. Daddy's home.
That's okay. We can get to that. But that's exactly right.
Yeah, and that's the way to recognize that everyone we're all people. We're all people, but we just have to get to know them and see them.
And diversity is it makes everything better. It's just really like way back in the day, in the Mary Tyler Moore show, they didn't show anything happening, but they led you to believe her boyfriend slept over.
Oh,
right?
That's right.
And they weren't married, and people went bat poop crazy over that, right? Like they were mad, right? And then it was like, you think single women aren't having sex?
Really?
Right? And even with this, it's one of those where it's like, most people, I really don't know anybody in my life that has sort of lived this straight path of easy life, didn't have something that they were dealing with in their own makeup and having challenges to face and that stuff. And that's what these people are. For me, I recognize myself in that. Whereas maybe for others, it's just exposure. You know what I mean? Because you've lived in a sort of, I grew up in downtown Toronto. There are all kinds of people.
Yeah.
It's
I
exposure.
grew up outside of Saskatoon. There were not a lot of different kinds of people there. So I read something recently that was really good. It was talking about the neurobiology aspect of the evolutionary desire for safety and safety to be found in the familiar. Right. So we are programmed, absolutely. And okay, little aside. You can see this in dogs, I swear.
Right.
And maybe not mixed breed dogs, maybe not rescue dogs that have lived in a lot of different places with a lot of other animals and people. But so when we had our rescue greyhound, she was bad with other dogs. But as soon as you got her, because we did a little bit of like just play racing with other people that had rescue greyhounds, she knew her tribe.
Right.
She knew her breed.
Yeah.
And she was fine with them. And I swear poodles, like they recognize other poodles.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And the evolutionary recognition of same versus different, that's survival, right? Ooh, something is different here. This might be dangerous to me. But it is an adaptation. It is an evolutionary adaptation to be able to go past that.
Right.
Like our lizard brain tells us, oh, different is scary. Different is scary. Different is scary. But in evolved humans' brains, we have learned that, different is not it. Different may be great. Different may enrich us all. But it is a sign of an advanced mindset. Right.
So that's interesting because growing up, my nose was always in a book. I knew from, I think, except for about when I was 3 years old that I wanted to be a veterinarian until you figured that you have to see hurt animals. So that went out the window pretty quick. But I knew I wanted to be a writer. And
that decision saved your life, Ruth.
Well, it's one of those where it's like, you don't just get to pet the puppies.
Very true.
Right. But for me, I never felt like I fit in. So different was my home, right? And so I came from a middle class family, and I came from, the grandparents were first generation immigrants, right? And so I came from a family that until my mom got into herself, I expect she was like this too. I think my dad was always like this. He had an idea of what success was and what family was and all of the things. And for me, it was always like, yeah, I don't think so. So for me, what people considered normal or average, I didn't understand that language.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess that's why I'm more comfortable as soon as if there's a quirky person in the room, I am definitely interested in talking to them. But I also have that side of my head. If there's a person dealing with anything that's a little bat poop, they also go, oh, you're one of us.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really not that far on the scope of that.
I think I have that sign too. I can't tell you how many, and
You're a writer, though.
Typically do not love parties and the cocktail party thing makes me itch. I don't want to make small talk with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Just not my thing. But you have to do that sometimes. And I do that because generally I'm supporting my husband in something. And we'll go, I can't tell you the number of times the wackadoo person. I shouldn't say the person is wackadoo, but they come to me and they tell me a wackadoo story about their life. And I'm like, all ears. Because first of all, it keeps me out of the, hi, how are you? loop.
Right.
I get to just sit there and smile.
Are those
Louboutins?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I hear fantastic stories that I can't, in my mind, I'm like, I gotta write this down. No one will believe me. But yeah.
But then see what happens to me, and this is on me, is my thing is like, we should keep in touch because I can't help it, and that's where it goes sideways. Because don't, like, when they're telling you that they've been abducted by aliens, you can't save them. No, you gotta let them go.
You really do. Yeah, you really do.
But yes,
you reminded me when you were talking about Big Bang Theory, Will Trent, possibly Elsbeth in High Potential too. Yep. It reminded me of the book, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. Oh. Did you read that one?
No.
You've heard of it, right?
Like somebody should just set you up in a library and people walk in and you talk to them for 3 seconds and you go, here's the book you need. So
that book, it's a murder mystery essentially, but it wasn't really marketed that way because it is the story of how a young man, teenage boy, I can't remember how old he is, he's the narrating character, and he is absolutely 100% far on the spectrum. It's never mentioned once in the book. It's never mentioned in the back cover copy. You only know that from his behavior, but he solves the murder.
Right.
Because of how his brain works. But there is no question.
Right.
Because as he's narrating it, you're like, oh yeah, that's somebody, that's how someone on the spectrum would think. But it's just, I love how they do it because they show his humanity, they show his intelligence, they show his curiosity, and they show the gifts that he has.
Right, but
despite
that's just it, right?
there are obviously ways in which he doesn't function well in society, but he still has a great role to play in this story.
But that's just it. And for me, in my experience, right, is one of my best friends is on the spectrum.
Okay.
And
it's not me, right?
That's a whole other spectrum.
Could be me.
But he has these social awkward things.
Yeah.
Socially awkward things.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always a sort of tell. And it's my tell. And partly for me, I find as an introvert, I find a familial kind of thing. Because introvert and the social awkwardness often of someone with autism. And the fact is, both to me, in my experience, both once we feel comfortable, the awkwardness isn't so challenging. Yeah. But it is sort of like, it is that, like, it's like with Will Trent and his comes from having a really, really tragic, damaged past.
Okay.
But he sees the world differently.
Yeah.
Right? And all my life I've been told by people, including my parents, and usually in a good way, but not always. It's like, you see the world differently, right? And in my job in communications, that's a good thing.
That's
because I can pick up on vibes from people, right? Whereas when I was growing up, different wasn't good. It wasn't encouraged.
Different is never good when you're growing up.
Yeah.
Like that is such a thing for kids. You just want to fit in. You just want to be part of the group. You don't want to be singled out for anything ever. Yeah. Yeah.
But it is interesting. And it's one of those, I'm really glad that they're showing characters who are all over the place different. Like they're not every character, like I loved Friends, but they could never have afforded those apartments, right? So when you see the Connors or whatever it's called now, right, you see that they're struggling financially, right?
The Connors, is that it used to be the one spin-off of Roseanne?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and they're struggling financially, and they talk about those things, and that's really good. And then you see, you see gay characters, right, in movies and things now, and it's one of those where it's like, imagine going through life, never seeing you
representation somewhere. Exactly.
Right, and now it's changing and it's different, but it's been a long time coming.
Well, and when you. This is the thing, like going back to my conversation with Ray about the patriarchy and the toxic masculinity and stuff. When you don't see it, when you don't see the way that, how do I express this? That women have always been second place. Yeah. You don't see it because it's normal.
Yeah.
It's just normal, right?
Yeah.
And for me, growing up in a Mennonite Brethren home, okay, God the Father,
right?
It was always it was always male centric. And whenever I would say something like, but men, all mankind and blah, blah, blah. What about all humankind? What about all person kind? Like, doesn't that, that's understood. That it's understood that women are part of that. You don't know what it feels like.
Right. But
when you have to always be I'm the add-on. I'm not the, you don't understand.
Right. You're not the primary.
You're not the primary.
What was, and I mean, it wasn't that great of a book, but what was Prince Harry's? The Spare.
Oh, Heir in the Spare,
right?
Yeah,
and I think that's a different but similar kind of thing. It's like, you can step in, but only if he can't do it, right? You know what I mean? If he's not available.
Yeah.
And you see it sometimes when you go freaking to car dealerships, right? The salesperson doesn't talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, I freaking hate buying cars.
Yeah, because it's just one of those things. And to be fair, I don't know that much about cars, and I don't care. But also they make this assumption, right? And the assumption is oh dear, right? And it's kind of like, buddy, I could outrun you intellectually, and I'm not that smart. But it's like, you're stupid enough to show me that you're dismissing me.
Yeah. I can walk into you know what it's like to walk into a furniture store. And you're like, I don't have the energy to fight off a salesperson today. There is something about my face. When I walk into a furniture store, nobody talks to me. When I walk in alone.
Right.
When I walk in with Ray, they're all over us.
Okay, but he's also, I have to say, he's also like a friendly guy, right? He's a chatty guy.
What are you saying? I'm not mean.
You're not mean, but I can
be mean.
But I get the same face too when it's like, I'm fine, thanks.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just browsing. Move along.
Anything you're looking for today? No.
Just coming in out of the cold.
You just can't. You can't. Honestly, you can't. It's one of those things. So we're and so many people now, they don't do it. They don't do it as much in restaurants to me, but I think that's mostly because I'm interested in food, right? So I'll usually be the one to go, hey, can you tell me about this, or what would you suggest on the menu? So the energy shifts, right? But it is interesting. There are lots of places where if I walked in, they would just be, and especially so we become invisible because we're older, and we're women on top of that. So and it's all that. So you walk in like to a nice clothing store. I can see sometimes, especially if I've got jeans and sneaker on, right? And they're like, why are you in here? And then it's
the pretty woman moment.
It's exactly, right? And it's a little bit like, you underestimate me, right?
Underestimate us. So middle-aged, I should say women in their prime, Canadian women in their prime, do not underestimate us, man.
Let's just for just a little, become a little political.
Okay.
Do not underestimate Canadians.
Do not underestimate Canadians, man. Yeah, absolutely. We are polite. We want to get along with people. We want to treat people well.
And we have good welcoming, we want you to feel like you belong here.
I am always, I work hard with the people I work with, the publishing houses, the contractors, whoever I'm with. I work really hard to be a good team player. Yeah. I want to be the one that's easy to get along with. I mean, I've been an employer. I have worked with staff, and I'll tell you, the staff who do their job to the letter but give you no end of pain in your ass because of attitudes or whatever. I mean, I had people, they would come to work and then get dressed with their breakfast in their hand. I'm like, you know what? I don't care how good you are at putting in, IV catheters or whatever.
Don't do that. Show some respect.
I work really hard to be that person who's good to work with because I know how important that is. But that does not mean that I will suck back policies or treatment that is not in my favor that someone else is maybe getting.
And especially, but that's just it. And especially if it's unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
Like we have this, and the tariffs, and this is, we know it wasn't all the good Americans doing this, but I've never seen anything unite our country like this since,
no kidding.
I think probably since like when I was a little kid and Canada won the hockey game against Russia. Because there are people that I would fight with about politics who are online going, come for us.
Exactly.
Like, you try it, man.
You know what? Like, this obviously is really, really rough on a lot of people south of the border.
Yeah.
But in terms of Canada, it's uniting us. You're absolutely right.
And I think it might save us from getting getting the bad
leadership
people in power here.
That will
right?
do the same to us.
Yeah, but that's just it.
I think so too.
But the flip side, and we're sort of sliding into this a bit because we'll wrap up because we're actually going to have a not too long podcast because I think last one was an hour and a half. But that also sort of goes back to, we really do see that the good Americans don't want to come for Canada. And I mean, I'm getting all sorts of messages of support, but the message to the other ones is like, we've got the soul of a Canada goose. And I don't know what you did in Saskatchewan, but I grew up playing street hockey, and I know how to fight.
Okay, I'm just going to say geese are scary animals, right? Like you do not want to
You don't want to mess with it.
You do not want to mess with them.
We have geese here, and like there's sometimes they have little babies in a little bush, and you see the goose.
You come
and
too
me and
close.
Paul and the dogs like walk about a quarter mile all the way around not to go in it. And we're Canadians, and they know we're Canadians, but the bad Americans, we're going to train our geese to come at you.
Also, we have moose. We have a lot of moose in Canada. And we also have the souls of mooses.
Meese. We also have hockey sticks.
Okay, and do you know that moose are responsible for more deaths than meese? More deaths than, I don't know, fill in the blank. I'm going to come up with a statistic here somewhere that makes sense. I'll put it in.
Yeah, we'll put it in that's right.
But they are dangerous
animals. And they're big. Like if you hit them with your car, your car gets crushed.
You're probably dead. Yeah. The moose might survive, but you probably won't.
No, you won't.
So,
but we also
don't
come for us.
Don't underestimate Canadians. Do not underestimate women in their prime.
But and that's right. And the Canadian thing, because when it comes to self-respect, Canadians have learned a lot because we've been good partners, we've been good team players, we've been all of it, and then you cross the line.
Yeah, and then it's like, excuse me, that's unacceptable.
Yep. And when
doesn't fly.
And when you hear a Canadian not say, "Hey, excuse me, I just want to scooch by you" in the grocery store, if they say "excuse me" in this tone of voice, duck.
Yeah.
All I got to say is duck, because we're now. What did Gordie Howe used to say? Elbows up, gloves off. Right? We're not taking shit from anybody anymore. And it isn't just America.
Do you remember that scene in Fried Green Tomatoes? Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop
Is that the one with
Cafe.
the poo pie?
No, that's The Help.
Oh, okay.
That's The Help. This one is where there's a scene in the grocery store where this woman who is just starting to recognize her power, a woman in her prime, and she's driving in the grocery store, and she sees her parking spot that she wants to go for, and she's driving towards it. And then this couple of young girls, like hot young girls with the push-up bras and the cleavage and all that, they're like with their convertible, and they get in there ahead of her, and she's like, I was signaling. I was clearly heading there.
She was doing all the right things.
Yeah. Why did you get in there ahead of me? And they're like, sorry, we're younger and faster and cuter. You just lost out, honey. And so they get out and they walk in. And then
they have a nice little car.
They have a nice little car. So she takes her car and she's like, you know what? I can fit in there. And she slam-bams her car in there. And then she gets out and she's there when they come back. And they are freaking out. What are you doing to my car? And she's like, sorry, honey. I'm older, smarter, and I have better insurance.
Right?
Yeah.
That's us.
That's us. That sounds like a good place to
leave
things.
So what are your gratefuls?
Oh, my gratefuls. I am really grateful for this podcast. I've been looking forward to this all week. And given the fact that I was out with my kids a lot and we got 3 dogs in the house right now, I haven't seen you all week.
No.
So I'm very grateful that we get to do this.
Nope, that's a good one. I'm grateful for the good Americans who have been posting publicly that they love Canada and encouraging us to buy Canadian.
Yeah.
They're like, it might hurt us, but fill your boots.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm also really grateful for the people out there that are truly fighting, because there's momentum now.
Yeah.
And I think I have hope we might come out of this now, because people are really starting to fight back. And I know it's ugly and stuff, but I also really appreciate that they realized that tariff would be really bad for Canada, and they were stepping up and fighting back about it. And also, I got to say, I'm really grateful for the Canadians who are like, bring it on.
Bring it, man.
Right?
Yep.
Anyway, what do we want more of, Rox?
We want more happy hours. What do we want less of, Ruth?
We want less bullshit.
Always less bullshit.
Okay, you guys take care out there.
Do it, and we will see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for being part of this. Bye.